The one thing creatine citrate's marketing gets right is that it dissolves better. It genuinely does. Put a scoop in a glass of water, give it a stir, and you will notice the difference from standard monohydrate. Cleaner, less gritty, and no powder settling at the bottom. What it gets wrong is treating a solubility improvement as a performance improvement. Creatine citrate is creatine combined with citric acid in a salt form. The citrate molecule is larger than the water molecule in creatine monohydrate, which affects the practical calculation immediately. Creatine citrate contains roughly 40% creatine by molecular weight versus 88% for creatine monohydrate. To deliver 5 grams of actual creatine, you need approximately 12.5 grams of creatine citrate powder. That is a lot of powder to mix and consume in a single serving. The citrate component is not biochemically inert. Citric acid is an intermediate in the Krebs cycle, the mitochondrial pathway that generates ATP from carbohydrates and fats. Citrate supplementation has been studied in its own right for potential effects on endurance performance, though findings are mixed and effect sizes are generally small. The theoretical case for citrate co-supplementation alongside creatine rests on the idea that supporting both the phosphocreatine system and the Krebs cycle metabolism simultaneously could produce additive benefits. What the evidence shows is something different. Studies comparing creatine citrate to creatine monohydrate at equivalent creatine doses have found similar muscle creatine loading and similar performance outcomes. One study tracking blood creatine kinetics after creatine citrate found absorption comparable to monohydrate, confirming that the improved solubility does not translate to meaningfully superior delivery to muscle tissue. The dissolution advantage matters practically only in the gut, and creatine's intestinal absorption from monohydrate is already efficient enough that faster or more complete dissolution provides no downstream benefit. The creatine transporter in the muscle cell membrane, not intestinal absorption, is the rate-limiting step in muscle loading. Cost is a significant issue. Creatine citrate products are typically more expensive per gram of product than monohydrate, and when you account for the lower creatine per gram content, the cost per unit of actual creatine delivered is substantially higher. A practical daily dose of creatine citrate also requires consuming a larger total mass of powder, which some people find inconvenient. The improved dissolution is a real quality of life advantage for people who find standard monohydrate's texture off-putting. This is the same practical benefit offered by micronized monohydrate. And micronized monohydrate delivers more creatine per gram and is usually cheaper. Creatine citrate occupies an awkward position. It has a genuine practical advantage, solubility, but an inflated price point and lower creatine density that undermine the value proposition. The compound that solves the dissolution problem better, more cheaply, and at higher creatine content per gram is micronized monohydrate. Creatine citrate is an interesting formulation with no performance argument that justifies choosing it over that alternative. The Krebs cycle argument for the citrate component is worth addressing directly. Citrate, or citric acid in its protonated form, is an intermediate in the tricarboxylic acid cycle. The Krebs cycle's role in energy metabolism is fundamental. It is where acetyl-CoA from carbohydrate, fat, and protein metabolism is oxidized to produce the electron carriers, NADH and FADH2, that drive the electron transport chain and ultimately produce the majority of aerobic ATP. Citrate supplementation has been studied as a performance aid, primarily for its potential to buffer intramuscular acidity during high-intensity exercise. Citrate is an alkaline salt, and like sodium bicarbonate, it can raise blood pH and delay the acidosis that accumulates during intense effort. Research on sodium citrate as a buffering agent has shown modest performance benefits in supermaximal exercise in some studies. But the citrate content in a standard creatine citrate dose is substantially lower than the doses used in citrate buffering research. Sodium citrate performance studies typically use doses of 500 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, taken 30 to 60 minutes before exercise. The citrate delivered through a creatine citrate serving is a small fraction of that. Whatever buffering benefit citrate can provide at the right dose is not achievable through the amount present in creatine citrate as a creatine delivery vehicle. Solubility is a convenience, not a mechanism.